Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing well, Dan. How are you?
I'm great.
I am feeling pretty good. I think this cold I've been battling might be behind me.
That's great.
I hope it's true.
How long has it been now? A couple weeks?
Oh boy, I think 12 days since I first had symptoms.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm feeling pretty good now.
Good. Yeah, you sound better.
What'd you get up to this weekend?
This weekend, it was pretty low key, but we did make it into Disney to go see Boys to Men on Friday.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if did you ever?
No, I never ended up going. That was one of the many naps I took this weekend. Was Friday night. I went to bed early.
That was surprisingly good. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan, but I can recognize they have some talent. But they opened up with Lenny Kravitz, "Are You Gonna Go My Way?" They did the Beatles come together, and I had no idea they had such talent, musical talent as well, not just their voices, and that was really impressive. But what wasn't impressive is how quickly Disney cuts all of these great concerts short. It's a half hour, and you just start getting into it. And then it's like, all right, guys, we'll see you. We'll see you next time. And it's it's such a little tease. They're free, so you really can't can't complain. And you get close. It's the outdoor pavilion there. It's beautiful. You're out under the stars, and then off to the left you've got the globe lighting up, and then right afterwards was fireworks, and we sat outside and got to eat some food and watch the fireworks. So it was really nice, and I felt really, really grateful for being able to have something like that accessible to us so easily. It's just it's a short drive from where we live, and I'm really happy to be in Central Florida.
Yeah, it is. I love having my Disney annual pass, and it just blows my mind when I go there and I think of all the people that are walking around me who spent, $125 just to be there for the day. And it's the annual pass is a good deal, and I take full advantage of it. I was there for about, it had to be 10 plus years ago when I went to Food and Wine, and Everclear was the band that was performing there.
Oh, nice. I
and they put on a good show, but like you said, it was maybe 30 or 40 minutes, and then that's the end of the show. And it's like, that's enough time to play the hits and nothing else.
Yeah. Hey, so I know most of the bands, they do different showings. Do you know if they do the same exact, does every band do the same exact set at each time?
That's a good question.
Or do they, because I've never gone to more than one. I've heard they do, but I was just curious if that's the case for all of them. Because otherwise, I'll go a little bit earlier and make sure I go to all of them,
I'll bet they probably do almost the same exact set list every time. I would think Disney probably, because these aren't exactly stadium groups at the point that they're playing the Food and Wine Festival at Disney. So Disney's talent coordinator, whoever's in charge of that, probably has a pretty good handle on, okay, these are your 8 biggest hits, and this is what we expect you to play.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I just found out that my birthday on November 20th, pretty much the week leading up to that, we're blocked out on our passes for Disney. So, I thought about, I played with the idea of, hey, let's get out of town for my birthday. Let's go somewhere and do something. And then I was like, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to take the time away from work, because we're doing a cruise the week before Christmas anyway. I was like, we'll just hang around local. Maybe we'll go to Disney. It's like, nope, we're not going to go to Disney. We're gonna have to figure out something to do around Orlando that's not Disney. So, and usually by mid-November, late November, it's a little too cold to spend the day at the beach. At least the water temperature gets a little too cold. So I don't know what I'm going to do for that.
Maybe one of the
resorts.
Maybe one of the resorts with a heated pool. I don't know if Lazy River,
possibly,
is heated or not. The one that
the
Hilton. They do that, right?
Oh God, that's a nice Lazy River. But the thing is, around Thanksgiving, a lot of people up north have the same idea, and so the hotel prices start going up pretty high around that time of year, because there's a lot of people looking to escape the cold Thanksgiving and come down to Florida instead. So I was looking at one of the hotels that I've always wanted to stay. Well, really, two of the hotels that I've always wanted to stay at are the Yacht Club and the Beach Club over on the Disney Boardwalk. But I think the cheapest I saw was like $5.17 a night.
Wow.
I could hop on a Frontier flight and go to another city and stay at a decent place for a couple nights for what it would cost to spend one night at one of the fancy Disney hotels, So I don't know. I'll figure something out, but at the very least, I've got a reservation at a restaurant I've been wanting to try. It's an Asian fusion restaurant at the JW Marriott in Bonnet Creek. It's the one that's up on like the 9th or 10th floor of the JW Marriott, and it overlooks the fireworks and stuff. So I've got a reservation there.
Nice.
That at the very least we could go have dinner there.
That sounds great.
And usually Asian restaurants, it's pretty easy to not blow away your diet, because all you have to do is just get some sashimi or something, and you can eat responsibly at a place that has sushi. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So, and I am trying to bump up my intake of fatty fish, because everybody pretty much universally agrees that fatty fish is a good way to put food in your body.
Yeah.
So things like mackerel, tuna. What are some of the other ones that are considered fatty fish? I think swordfish is considered fatty.
I don't think tuna is considered fatty. No.
I think certain parts of it are.
Maybe not the parts that I've been eating.
No.
So I know salmon is I'm not a super well versed on different fatty fish. I don't eat a whole lot of fish, but when I do, it's usually salmon. Because I love the salmon. I love the taste.
I wish I liked the taste of salmon that much.
I love it. So that's
maybe I should try to develop a taste for it, like I did tomatoes.
Yeah.
Decide I'm going to like salmon.
Yeah. I think you'd be just as well suited to eat slightly fattier cuts of meat, because there is a significant portion of omega-3s, from both conventional as well as grass-fed meats. So what I've actually recently read was that there's a big difference between like pasture raised and conventional eggs. Same thing with pasture raised and conventional chickens, or other types of animals in terms of whether they're living off the field or not. But in terms of nutrients, there actually isn't that much of a difference between grass fed and conventional animals. Now, the conventional animals, you're going to be probably eating a little bit more of the stress hormones that get released when they are slaughtered, as well as maybe you might be getting some of the not so great hormones and antibiotics that they're probably given versus the pasture raised. But in terms of nutrients, there's not much of a difference between grass fed and conventional.
Well, that's good for people.
There is a huge difference in price, though. So
I was going to say, that's good news for people who can't afford to eat as much organic grass-fed stuff as they might like to.
And I still think you're better off eating even the conventional meat versus the processed stuff in boxes and bags and things like that. And ironically, not to keep going down a tangent, but I'm going to anyway. I was reading some articles on bottled water and how bad the plastic is for bottled water in terms of leaching. And there's a lot of microplastics in bottled water. Because if you think about it, it's not like the water containers that we have from BPA free type of plastic, the hard plastic. It's that it basically crumbles in your hand. Well, it leaches in. No plastic is actually a solid container. It actually does leach into the water, and also leaches into food too. So one of the things that I didn't realize, and what I went through actually and saw a company that's looking to disrupt the plastic industry, and they're basically creating completely fully dissolvable plastic in water, plastic containers that dissolve fully in water, and that are non-toxic. But, I didn't realize what they informed me about was that, so you think about the little plastic bags that bread is in, right? So those plastic bags aren't solid. They are slowly leaching microplastics into the food. So it's not just with bottled water, but it's all food that touches any type of plastic. Plastic is not a solid thing like glass. It is basically it slowly leaches into. And the problem with the microplastics in our bodies is it causes all kinds of problems. It's been shown to cause like blood clots and our bodies just don't know how to handle it. So, sorry, didn't mean to go down that road, but, you made me think of it. So it's all your fault.
But those microplastics, they just taste so good, though. That's the problem. It's so delicious.
The stuff that's in those microplastics, for sure. I mean, that's the problem, right? Yeah.
All right. So a couple of other little segments you and I have talked about adding to the show. One of them was I wanted to spend a little time talking to each other about what do you foresee as being your biggest challenge this week?
Oh, that's great. You can go first because I hadn't thought about this.
Mine is going to be, I'm trying to use the time change to my advantage. We fell back Saturday night, got a second hour or an additional hour of sleep. And it is making it a little bit easier on me to wake up as early as I'd like to, right? Because at this point, we're only 2 days into it. And my body is telling me that it's an hour later than the clock is telling me that it is. So I'm trying to jump on top of that. And this morning I woke up at like 3:45, 3:50 and stayed awake. And I want to keep that up. I want to be feet on the ground by 5 a.m. every morning and sort of doing things I know that I need to do on a daily basis at 5 a.m. And the challenge I think I'm going to have this week is saying no to all the fun things I like to do at night, whether that's, just playing on my phone or watching a TV show or going out to one of the parks at Disney or whatever. I want to get to bed early enough where I can wake up as early as I want to and have enough hours of sleep to feel rested. So that's what I see as being my big challenge this week is saying no to fun things and going to bed at the hour that I should, which really I should be by 10 o'clock. I should be in bed under the covers, ready to drift off.
Yeah.
And that's hard because fun things happen after 10.
Yeah. For sure. For me, my challenge this week is going to be properly planning the food and exercise schedule that I'm going to have. I'm going to be going up to visit some family over the next 2 weeks, up in New Jersey. And it's really going to be a challenge for me to maintain a healthy eating schedule and a healthy workout schedule. When I don't have as much control over where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be where, what food I'm going to have available to me, how much, room I have to bring things with me and store things, how much access I'm going to have to different, gyms, workout equipment and stuff. So I'm really going to spend, and what I'm going to do to try to combat that is I'm going to spend some time planning, thinking about every single day. I mean, I'm going to be up there for almost 13 days and just trying to think through what each one of those days is going to look like based on the information that I have. Right.
Gotcha.
And, and look at, okay, what do I have available for food? What can I bring with me perhaps to kind of bridge that gap, right? How close am I going to be to a gym? Am I going to be close to a gym that I have a membership to, or do I need to pay out of pocket, to get to one that's, not that, that's not too far away. So, those are some of the things that I'm going to be challenged with this week. And I would say, if you haven't done it already, I would challenge you for your challenge to say, all right, each one of those days where you're tempted to stay up late, what's one little thing that you could do that kind of might push you to go to bed when you want to go to bed?
Interesting. I'll, once 5 o'clock hits and my work day is done, I will just let all the air out of my tires so I can't go anywhere. I'll let all the air out of my girlfriend's tires, too, so we can't take her car. Sorry, we're not going anywhere until AAA gets here.
Great idea.
Yeah. No, that's a good thought, though. Yeah, it's like when you know that a challenge is upcoming, it does very little good to say, this is going to be difficult without having some kind of a plan to actually deal with it, right? Like, what am I going to do instead of having this go as bad as it could possibly go?
Right.
Yeah, that's legit.
And it's a thought. We don't have to get into it now, but maybe thought is you don't try to get into bed every night by 10 o'clock. Maybe you say, all right, one of these nights I'm going to go and I'll stay up late or whatever. And then maybe you don't feel so deprived by giving things up on the other nights, right? Maybe just a thought, something along those lines,
Yeah, it's definitely, one of the difficult problems is, my Tuesdays are the day that I drive to St. Pete, which, now I'm on this side of Orlando. It's not as bad as it used to be. I can usually make it in hour and a half or so, but Monday is my longest day and often my latest night. And then Tuesday is my morning where I have to actually wake up early and do something, not just journal, not just go for a walk around the neighborhood, but actually get in my car and drive, an hour and a half. So if I can, it actually feels like, a little bit of a mixed blessing to have my toughest night day combo early in the week, so that, it's not like I don't have to build up my willpower or keep it going for the whole week and then have to do it on Friday, Saturday. It's actually, right out of the gate after hopefully a well-rested weekend. It's my longest day is Monday. So that works out as well as can be expected. I would say.
Yeah. And having that extra rest definitely helps with willpower and motivation earlier in the week. So it means you're able to handle things that are a little bit more difficult, right? And that's,
100%.
I think it's a good transition into the Tiny Habits.
Yeah.
Podcast.
So we did kind of an overview of the philosophy last time where we shared with our listeners the fact that we were not going to continue the 4 agreements as we originally thought, because as great a book it is, it's a brief book. And, us talking about it for 5 hours when it only takes 2 hours to listen to didn't seem to be a good way to spend our time. So, again, I would encourage everybody to give that a listen. It's not a long time. It's not a long read. But we did decide we're going to change gears, and with all the New Year's resolutions coming up, we're going to try to set everybody up for some success, including ourselves. So any New Year's resolutions on your radar, Dan? Anything you're thinking about considering for 2023?
Basically grow my coaching business.
Okay, nice.
In a Tiny Habits way. So that's, I think, something that, actually doing this with you, and working through the coaching aspect here is fantastic for me. And I appreciate that. And so that's going to be really, my goal, my aspiration for 2023 is to have basically a coaching business that's bringing in revenue. So I haven't gotten specific about that yet, but I know that there's some elements I need to put in place, and I'm calling myself out to do that right here.
Nice. I can appreciate that. And as I shared on our Patreon episode this week, I am taking on the goal of in my 45th year on this lovely planet, I want to be able to see my abs at some point. And not just for one day, maybe one day, but for at least one day. We'll say it that way. I want to be able to look in the mirror or take a picture of myself and see my abs. I never have. I've either been too scrawny to have them or too fat to see them. And I'm going to try to combat both of those this time. And we'll see how it goes. And I'll let you can practice your coaching on me for the next however long it takes until I either give up or we get there.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's dive into the introduction to BJ Fogg's book, Tiny Habits, and we'll give everybody a little bit of a heads up of what he talks about and sort of the foundation that he starts to lay with how all the times you've tried to create a new habit for yourself or take on some new positive behavior and you failed at it, it's not your fault. It's not because you're too weak. It's not because it's too hard. It's not because you don't have the willpower or the motivation. It's because you've been trying to use a hammer on a job that required a drill, essentially, right? Right.
Yeah. One of the analogies he gave was, if you bought some a new dresser or something, a piece of furniture from IKEA, and the holes don't line up with the way they should, you don't blame yourself. right? You
Right.
blame the person who either manufactured or designed the furniture, right? And the same thing goes with habits. Is too often we're blaming ourselves for not having enough willpower, not having the motivation to keep up with it. And a lot of the thinking is really, hey, if you've got the information, your attitude's going to change. And if your attitude changes, your behavior is going to change. It's as simple as that, right?
Right. Yeah, but that's not the case. I mean, we
don't lack information, right? I mean, we have so much information at our fingertips about anything we could possibly want. So why aren't more people able to make the changes that they want? Right.
Yeah, it's interesting, and not to harp on politics too much, but tomorrow is election day. The idea that people would be able to have the positive, fortunate, successful lives that we all want for each other to have, if we just had more education, has been a fallacy that has been quite popular in this country for a long time, and it doesn't look like the only factor is throwing more time and effort and money at educating people. Right. It's about incentivizing people. It's about having people, a system in place where people make decisions that are good for them because they actually feel like those decisions will be good for them. So if you have the right incentives in place, really you just need a minimal level of information. It's the incentives that matter more than the information does.
For sure.
Just by being smart enough or educated enough doesn't mean you're going to make the right decisions. Just by, look at how long we've hammered the idea that smoking is bad for you. So are there any people that are walking around still smoking cigarettes that think, oh, it's probably okay for me, or we don't really know that it's bad for? No, we all know that it's bad. It's about incentives. If the right incentives aren't there for people to give up cigarette smoking, then they're not going to do it. No matter, how many images of black lungs they look at.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit I smoked for a couple of years right after college, and, smoking cigarettes was the most difficult thing I had to quit. I had no idea how addictive those things actually are. And it wasn't until, I coughed a little too much. I started to stink. I could actually smell, what I smelled like. And even then I kind of continued to do it, but it wasn't actually until in New Jersey, they passed a law that you couldn't smoke inside. And so we used to smoke in the bars.
Right.
And now in the middle of winter, it was freezing. If I wanted a cigarette and hang out with my friends, we had to go outside and stand and shiver in the cold, with a cigarette between our fingers, and it was just miserable. And it wasn't until then I was just like, this sucks. And I knew, I was a nutrition major. My mom smoked and I hated it. You
knew it was bad for you, but the information was not enough to get you to stop.
Oh yeah. So it wasn't until, I was motivated enough to create, to implement the changes that I needed to, in order to stop smoking. But even then I needed the right tools. A lot of people, when they try to quit smoking, they don't use the right tools, or they don't use right tools and then they give up, and they don't look at it as an experiment or as they need to figure out. They think, hey, I just don't have the motivation. I don't have the willpower. I can't quit smoking. Meanwhile, maybe they were just, using a toothpick and they didn't do anything for their nicotine craving. Right. Or vice versa. They were just, chewing the gum and they didn't have a toothpick to basically, handle the hand to mouth habit that they didn't realize they picked up. Right. And so, yeah, sometimes it's really the design of the habit, or the design of the habit that you're using to actually replace another habit. So that's why I really like this book. It's not just the creation of new habits. It's how to eliminate bad habits as well.
Yeah. And it does, this book's a great reminder that, in many, many ways, if not always, we are animals, and animals find themselves in patterns based on what they believe they need to do to survive. And there have to be compelling circumstances, environments, epiphanies. Something significant has to happen in order for you to get out of the pattern that you're quite convinced is related to your survival, or your thriving, or your security, or whatever. And those can be, all sorts of bad habits. We can be tricked into believing that they're a necessary part of who we are and our ability to survive and operate in the world. And so for those habits to change, you have to have a pretty compelling story, right?
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that reminds me, one of the things he talked about in the book was, in the intro specifically, is that, through his research, and he's been Dr. BJ Fogg's been a Stanford researcher, I guess when he wrote this book for, I guess it was 10 years of habit design. And that was, I think, in 2007. So he's been doing this for a long time. He's still at it. And he talks about, the things that he discovered in terms of being able to make a lasting change, right? It's either, like you said, have an epiphany, change your environment, or change your habit in tiny ways. And so those are really the only long lasting ways to make a change. And, having an epiphany really, that's not something that's reliable that you can do, but you can change your environment, and you can change, meaning the space that you're working in, that, where you're doing that habit. You can change, You can change elements of that. And then you can also, change the habit in very small ways, rather than going big or going home. Right. That's
in your example about quitting smoking, I mean, that was at least a big part of that was the environment change, right? You're like, okay, I can be a smoker, but I'm going to be a smoker shivering outside and being uncomfortable and having to, get my coat from the coat check guy or gal and bundle back up and put my scarf and cigar and my scarf back on, my gloves, and walk outside. And so the cost of your environment became more expensive to be a smoker than it was a month ago before they passed the law.
Yeah. So that combined with what I basically changed in terms of a small way, instead of smoking cigarette, I had a eucalyptus flavored, toothpick that I would suck on, as well as, Nicorette, the gum. And so basically I did both. And again, it was a small, instead of having a cigarette, I would have that. But that wasn't enough. I needed also have it be more difficult as well. In terms of, having to not be able to smoke inside.
Yeah. So, this one section in the introduction, he basically says that if you want to, design a successful habit and change your behavior, you got to do three things. And the first one is to stop judging yourself and stop. And that's one of the things we've talked about before. You don't shame yourself into long-term positive change.
Yep.
And, Brene Brown, who's the most vocal and well-documented researcher on shame, probably in the country, if not the world. She has said herself, if I could shame bad people into stopping bad things, whether it's, violent behavior or racism, whatever, she's like, if you could shame people into stopping the behaviors that we don't want as a society, I would be the first one going out there teaching people how to shame others. But it doesn't work. You just cannot shame people into doing the right thing or giving up the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so, this idea that, if I hate myself enough to give up sweets or, to start exercising, then, I just got to hate what I see in the mirror enough. That can start things, but it's not going to keep you going. It's not going to keep you going on the path you want to go down. It can be a way to make you adopt some extreme behavior in the short term, but it's not going to be the thing that keeps you doing the stuff that you need to do to have long-term healthy behaviors.
I mean, think about it. We like to feel good, right?
Right.
And when you feel bad, I mean, it's a simple thing, right? He used an analogy too about, eating ice cream. Like, it's easy because, ice cream tastes good. I mean, that's an easy habit to keep going. Right. Whereas if it was to, eat something you hate, say you hate broccoli or carrots and, celery sticks, eating that, it doesn't make you feel good. It's a lot more difficult to keep that at it. And what's nice about his whole behavior design is that it eliminates the I don't want to do this. This is really about teaching yourself how to do something you already want to do and doing it in a way that's sustainable and easy.
Yeah. The second point that he mentions is take your aspirations and break them down into tiny behaviors. And really, I mean, the book's called Tiny Habits, and he uses the word tiny a lot because it really does come down to, breaking everything down into the smallest possible unit of action that you can, and then using that as a building block. And, that was one of the things, when I was in college and I worked at the Lego Imagination Center at, what was then called Downtown Disney, and now is Disney Springs. When when the engineers who came in and built the big sculptures came in. The surprising thing that makes total sense now, but I was surprised to learn most of those big sculptures that people build with Lego bricks, they use the smallest possible bricks to build them. They don't use big bricks. They use the smallest bricks, and there's a whole lot of them because to get the level of detail where you can make something look, realistic, you can make a man that looks like a man, you have to use the smallest possible component to be able to build it with the resolution, for lack of a better term, to make it look real. You have to use the smallest possible piece. And that seems to be what BJ Fogg does too. He's like, let's break down this thing that you want for yourself into the smallest possible piece, and eat the whale one bite at a time. Yeah,
that's crazy. You just use that analogy. I actually went to the Lego store for the first time.
Oh yeah,
over the weekend, and had never seen the dragon coming out of the water, as well as the dragon fire breathing with the knight with his shield up.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, just tiny little Legos, but I mean, really impressive what these people have done, have built. It's unreal. It's jaw dropping.
My favorite story. Well, I have a couple of stories from when I worked there. I was on the team that opened that store before it was open. They hired me to work there as a cashier and do stock and clean up and stuff. And one of my favorites was when people, they have all those sculptures outside. So people would constantly come up to us and say, "What happens when it rains?" And every time my answer was to look at them dead in the eye, straight faced, and say, "Rain falls from the sky." That's what happens when it rains. They're like, "No, I mean to the sculptures." Well, they get wet.
You never know. I would have gone with, one of our engineers takes it apart when it starts to rain, and then they put it back together when it's dry.
After it's over. Yeah. That would be good too. Water falls from the sky. What do you mean? What happens when it rains? It was fun. Okay, and then the third one that he says is embrace mistakes as discoveries and use them to move forward. So yeah, that's going to be, one of the things. I will probably sort of tie that process into my evening journaling to say, okay, what, with these new habits that I'm trying to form, what didn't work the way I wanted it to today, and then try to, look at it not what did I screw up today or how did I fail today, but what didn't go the way that I expected / hoped it would, and why do I think it didn't go that way? And so, try to use that and make a note for tomorrow about what didn't work the way that I expected it to today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to kind of reflect back and, really treat it as an experiment and and remind yourself that it's an experiment. You're figuring it out. You're refining it, right? It's like taking a sculpture and you're just kind of chipping away at it. It is not, these habits are a work in progress. And the other thing to think about too is these are not habits you need, or these behaviors, I should say, are not things that you're going to need to do, or you may not need to do the rest of your life. It might just be to get to a certain point, and once you're there, you don't need to do them anymore. So sometimes, you're creating these things. These aren't set in stone. So I probably shouldn't have used that idea of chipping away, because these aren't things that you need to keep doing for the rest of your life, because, things change in your life, but what doesn't change is your ability to make adjustments to the habits that you have. And so that's part of this process, is you're building your skills in habit and behavior change and formation. And by doing that, you're able to adapt as your needs change, as your environment changes, and as your wants change. You may not want to do something anymore, and then that's totally fine. And when you kind of distance yourself from it a little bit, it's easier to then not take responsibility or blame when things don't work exactly right.
Yeah, because, expecting that, whether you're working on a project at work or you're trying to develop a new habit, expecting that you have enough information for everything to go exactly the way you predict it will is kind of silly. I mean, there are always moving parts, and there are always variables that you can't account for. And you don't need to, the first time things don't go the way that you predicted doesn't mean you did anything wrong, and it doesn't mean you failed at the entire journey. It's just, okay, this one thing, I thought it would go this way, it didn't go this way. What does that mean for how I'm going to handle it tomorrow or an hour from now or whatever.
Yeah. One of the things I really liked about Tiny Habits is it's not about setting up accountability measures. It's not about giving yourself rewards and treats for doing these things. Like you talked about, it's not like a set number of days you do something for,
right,
or set number of times you do something for. He really kind of cuts through all of the urban legends that were some actually based on some scientific research,
right,
but really hasn't held up. And he has really kind of cut through that, turned it all on its head. And I really like this book because it's really actionable, step-by-step process of walking you through how to, use the system to create the behaviors that you want.
Yeah, I like that. He says some of the benefits, just section by section. Number one, Tiny is fast, which is certainly true. I mean, when you think of some of the small things that he asks you to do, like the what's the first one? The Maui habit.
Yeah.
After I wake up and put my feet on the floor, I will say it's going to be a great day. I mean, how much time does that take? 5 seconds?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, there are a lot of big changes. Like, we talked about on our Patreon episode, I want to get to the point where I can see my abs in the mirror and on camera. And how am I going to do that? Well, there's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to have to do to go into it. And a lot of them will be as small as literally 5 seconds during my whole 24-hour day. There will be some things that I do that take only 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And there will probably be a lot of them that only take a little amount of time. But you just kind of add them together and they can equal more than the sum of their parts, right?
Exactly. And, it also, it starts a cascade of good feeling too, because one little success is going to lead to you feeling a little bit better, and you're more likely to have a little bit more motivation, as well as being able to be open to additional new challenges and additional new behaviors and habits. And what's nice is with this system is you really learn to celebrate just doing that very tiny little habit and patting yourself on the back for that.
Yeah. And you change the way you think about yourself to, I am the person who does fill in the blank, not just today I got to remember not to remember to do this, or remember not to do this. It's like, no, I am the person who does this thing. Like, I'm the person who brushes my teeth. I'm the person who ties my shoes. I'm the person that, you don't think about it all the time. You just do those things automatically because that's part of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so subtle that you don't have to think about it. Same thing with like knowing how to drive a car, for most people. Right. You don't have to think about it. And that's just part of your identity. I'm somebody who can drive a car, right? Or somebody offers me cigarettes now. It's like, oh, no. Sorry,
yeah, I'm not a smoker.
I'm not a smoker.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Whereas when I was actually smoking, I'd be like, yeah, okay. That's part of my identity, and so that's the idea. It subtly wires in these identity changes, and that will lead to you doing other behaviors that align with your identity, right? I'm not going to have a cigarette now because it doesn't align with my identity, who I am. I'm a non-smoker.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's it's subtle, but it is powerful when you can wire it into your identity, and that's exactly what the system tells you to do, what teaches you how to do.
Yeah, and you can start, like, literally the day that you pick up the book is the day you can start doing this stuff, because it's not that complex. You don't need to understand all the theory. You don't need to finish the whole book and be able to, do a dissertation on it or become somebody's coach to start doing some of this stuff. That's why he puts the Maui habit at the very beginning, that you just put your feet on the floor in the morning and say, it's going to be a great day. You can do that when you wake up tomorrow. You don't have to finish the book before you get started, which is nice, because a lot of, self-improvement books or something like that, they will flat out tell you, read the whole book before you start any of this stuff. Yeah. And he doesn't take that method with this book.
Again, right. I mean, it's very meta, but he has you right from the beginning doing something very little to make you feel good. And you're now tying that to the information in the book, and you want to keep going. And so, really the thing that he kind of sums up here, the most important skill in behavior design is feeling successful, right?
Right.
And so that was good to know because, to me, I don't always wake up every morning and feel like, hey, it's going to be a great day. So for me to say that and not feel it, it means that something needs to change. So this is where normally I'd be like, well, before I read Tiny Habits, I'd give up on this. I'd be like, you know what? He's wrong. Right. Like he's wrong with this method because I can't wake up every morning and feel good and say this and feel something, right? And feel good about it. I feel like I'm lying to myself sometimes. So what's nice is he pivots here and says, listen, there are going to be maybe saying that every morning, it feels disingenuous, and that's a problem.
Right.
So because if you're not feeling successful, so maybe you need to change the sentence a little bit. So for example, you could say today is going to be a great day. And to me,
we talked about that. We talked about that forever ago when we were talking about, giving yourself positive affirmations. If you wake up one day and you feel like I can't say I am worthy, then settle for saying I'm probably more worthy than I feel right now.
Yes.
And just reframe it in a way that you can buy it.
Yeah. And likewise, if, putting your feet on the floor and saying it then doesn't work for you, maybe it's after you brush your teeth, or wash your face, you look yourself in the mirror and you say it to yourself in the mirror. And and the key here is, where do you feel the most successful? Where do you feel like it's true for you, where it makes you feel a little bit better than you did before? Because that is what he has discovered, is that habits are formed based on emotions and positive emotions. So the more positive emotions you tie to a behavior, the faster it's going to become a habit, something you do automatically long term. It is not the number of days you do something. It's not the number of times you do something. So how do you generate those good feelings when you do that behavior? And in this book, he really kind of walks you through that. It's important that you're doing something you already want to do, and you do it, and you're able to create some sort of internal feelings that feel good when you remember to do it, as well as when you do it. And all of those things kind of reinforce themselves in terms of making this something that is sustainable, repeatable, and eventually becomes part of who you are.
Yeah, and I also like that to get going on this, you don't have to start with a huge investment of time, effort, or money. You can start very, very small. And he gives the example of, if you decide that, I should start doing yoga, it's like you could, watch a YouTube video and do it in your living room, or you could book a flight to India and go there for, a week on a yoga retreat. And, if you do the latter and you don't keep up with it when you get back, you're going to feel like, oh, I wasted all that time. I wasted all that money. I wasted all that effort. And now I don't even do yoga anymore. I feel like a loser. Where if you start super, super small, then you don't have all this pressure and all this expectation you put on yourself to, okay, I've dumped so much investment into this thing. Now, if I have a bad day, I'm going to feel like crap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it comes back to he uses the analogy of, him, surfing as well. Yeah. He's learning to surf, and he spends part-time out in Hawaii, and, he's learning to surf in this, really kind of, mild, beginners area of the island. And on the other side of the island is, where they get massive 20-foot waves. It's an area called Jaws. He doesn't, even though he's learning and he knows how to, surf a little bit, he doesn't go over to the other side, and expect that he's going to conquer this huge wave, because, he could get hurt, first of all, doing that. And then he's going to want to give up surfing altogether. And it's the same thing like we just said with yoga. Our primitive brain, then, if we make a habit or a goal too lofty, then we're going to talk ourselves out of it, or our primitive brain is going to come up with ways and excuses to resist doing the things that we want to do in order to achieve that huge goal, because it just seems insurmountable. And so when we don't have the motivation, when we don't have the willpower to do anything, where, we have this huge, mountain of a goal in mind, it's very difficult to continue doing it. And then that's when we turn around and blame ourselves. And it turns out, well, we just didn't make the habit small enough, or we didn't fit it into our routine properly. And so he really reinforces the importance of making it small, making it fit into our existing routines.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about the potential for how big you can scale up, once you're willing to put in the time and effort to break things down to the smallest part, where, I mean, you literally could start tomorrow with, I'm going to put my sneakers at the foot of my bed, and in a shorter time than you might think, that can turn into, I'm running my first marathon tomorrow.
Yeah. And another thing that I picked up from this, I mean, I've read this book multiple times as I, for my own self, and then as I went through the coach training, and then just listening to it again right now, another really big piece. And for me specifically, because I'm not really an extrovert at all. I kind of like to, keep things to myself and not really be the center of attention. But by starting tiny, you don't really need to announce to the world that you're doing anything new. You don't have the pressure of other people looking at you or judging you. You can just do these little things and not need to tell anybody about it. Unless
you have a podcast.
Unless you have a podcast. But we're doing you, not me here. So
right, exactly.
I mean, I guess in a weird way, I'm kind of building my coaching practice here too. Right. And so that's my aspiration. And so I'm starting, tiny by coaching you here first. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but yeah, the details about the step-by-step guide that and techniques that we're doing that I've learned from my Tiny Habits coaching program, I will be walking Charles through in our Patreon episodes. So we highly recommend you go over to mindfullymasculine.com/Patreon and spring for the mere $1 a month that we're asking for, to get some insights into some real practical Tiny Habits training and examples.
And that reminds me, my new campground's internet seems to be back in working order again. So now, as I'm looking at the recording studio that we do this podcast in, you and I are both at 99% uploaded. So I'm functioning with a normal internet connection again, so I can work on getting all of our backlog videos uploaded to the Patreon so that people can watch you and me talking to each other as we record our episodes.
Fantastic. And as we work on building your 6-pack abs, maybe you'll show the progress on the podcast for the video as we are going over time. Or we can show off the picture, maybe we'll see about that. I mean, depending on how much accountability you want, it's not necessary. Again, it is not necessary. But just thought I'd throw that out.
No, if I actually pull this off, it'll be hard to find me with a shirt on. I'll be like the carnivore MD.
Carnivore MD, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to the grocery store and start arguments with people to show off my abs.
Decaf, all right, decaf is bullshit. That could be your motto.
Yeah. Let's talk about how Tiny doesn't rely on motivation or willpower, which is great because, I mean, that lines up directly with stuff that Dr. Julie said in Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before, that you can't rely on motivation or willpower to get important things done, right? It's gotta be about the system.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't think we've gone through it on this podcast, but we basically, and I think he talks on it in chapter 1. Basically, he's got a universal model for behavior change, and we'll and basically we'll tease it, but we'll get into that a little bit more for the next podcast. But it's behavior happens when motivation and ability come together when you receive a prompt, and we'll get into that a little bit more in chapter 1. But the things that we've been designing for up until this point, before BJ really came up with this model, were the wrong things. We were trying to figure out how to get more willpower or more motivation to do things, and that we're looking at the wrong things there to try to adjust, because those are not consistent and they change so frequently. We're chasing wild cats at this point, trying to catch something. Forget it.
So talk a little bit about the anchor behavior celebration model, the ABCs of the Tiny Habits anatomy.
Yeah. So basically, he's got what's nice is through the book, he's got some really easy to remember acronyms. So ABC here. So the anchor moment is the spot that happens right before you do this new behavior. So the spot in your life, in your routine that you can find. So BJ talked about how he, one of the things that he started was, flossing his teeth, and he realized, he wanted to do that on a regular basis. He wasn't doing it. Like most of us weren't doing it. So what he needed to do was figure out where would it make sense for him to floss his teeth. So it's not after he, it wasn't after he drove to work, right? It's not like he kept the floss on his dashboard and decided as soon as he pulled into the parking lot, he was going to floss his teeth. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's not a good anchor moment, So basically what he did was, all right, the anchor moment is after he puts his toothbrush back in the holder, he would, pick up the dental floss. And so that was his anchor moment, was putting the toothbrush back into its holder. So it's important to pick the proper anchor moment. Again, it's all of this is an experiment. We're figuring out what anchor, because sometimes you think it might work, it might fit in your routine, and it doesn't. So then the B and ABC here is the behavior, is what you actually want to do, and this is something that we want to, after we brainstorm a bunch of different behaviors that will get us to our aspiration or goal, we want to break it down and make it as tiny as possible. So we can do it in something like typically in, 30 seconds to 2 minutes or less. Right. And these are typically, this can be done on a regular basis. This could be a one-time behavior, believe it or not. Or it's going to be something you want to do on a regular basis. So in this case, the behavior is taking the floss, and picking up the floss, right? That's where he started. He didn't even floss his teeth yet. So the behavior he was practicing was just picking up the floss and maybe, and then maybe getting crazy and cutting it or something like that, right? So then the next piece here is, after you do that, you have to do the C, which is celebrate. And the celebration is just basically a feeling that you need to feel, and that feeling needs to be successful. It needs to be, I'm successful. It's something that makes you feel good. It makes you feel proud. And by doing that, we're taking advantage of our internal hormones, specifically dopamine, that basically says, hey, this is a feel good hormone, and you're now tying that behavior to that, or you're tying the hormone to that behavior. And what dopamine does is it not only helps you remember to do that, it makes you feel good, and also makes you feel motivated to take action. So dopamine is actually a motivation hormone. That's something I learned from Huberman. And it wasn't, I always thought it was just a feel good hormone. And I remember, BJ talking about it helps you remember, but Huberman actually said it actually helps motivate you to do things and take action. So, something else that BJ talks about a little bit later on is when you remember to do that new behavior, right? So when you go, okay, when you take that action and you remember to do that behavior, a little bit more advanced technique is try to feel good and try to feel proud of that right then and there, because now you're wiring in the dopamine and to remember to do that behavior, but you're also giving yourself a little boost of energy to take action, right? And so then you can execute that behavior, and once you do it, you have to come up with, you basically want to celebrate that as well. And through the book, he gives you ideas of ways to celebrate in really easy ways. It's not about, giving yourself a massage at the end of the week. It's not about, having a bowl of ice cream and rewarding yourself that way. It's a lot of these are things that you can think of in your mind, internally generated ideas and thoughts that actually make you feel good, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I have a question for you on the second exercise in this intro about the daily chocolate.
Okay.
Is eating the dark chocolate supposed to be its own habit, or is this being used to reinforce the taking your vitamins?
No, it's supposed to be its own habit, actually. Okay.
Interesting.
Because he's talking about, in this case, a small piece of dark chocolate. There is some evidence that shows that there's some antioxidants and some good things that come from health benefits from eating a small amount of dark chocolate, right?
Right.
But like a lot of things, small is, ironically, small is better here too.
Right.
Right. Too much of it is an issue. But
yeah, I wasn't sure if part of it was to reinforce the taking of the vitamins, or if it was just completely about eating the chocolate.
No, it's basically saying, hey, I already have the habit of taking. I think the assumption here is I already have the habit of taking the vitamins, gotcha. And he just wants to reinforce that these habits that you're coming up with, these behaviors that you're coming up with, are something that you should want to do. Right. Okay. So, not everybody likes dark chocolate. I know a lot of people who are like, no, it's too bitter for me, So, but I think it's a little bit more of a way to help reinforce that fact that these are things that you should want to do. and not something that you're torturing yourself to do, because then you're going to rely on motivation.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So he then goes on to reinforce the idea that people change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. So he encourages folks to write the phrase on a piece of paper: I change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. Yeah. Tape it to your bathroom mirror or anywhere you'll frequently see it. Read the phrase often and notice how this insight works in your life and for the people around you. So is this something you've done?
Yeah, it's in my bathroom, I guess bathroom right here. And it's a good reminder, because every time, it seems ironic, because I seem to find it whenever I'm not feeling so good about myself, or whenever I may have said something or thought something about somebody else that I'm not really particularly proud of, or, and I realize, I was kind of wishing that they were a way that they're not. And, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, if I really want them to change, I need to make them feel good. I can't be, argumentative with them, or, or say bad things about them. That they're never going to possibly change. Now, again, I don't believe you can really change somebody anyway. They definitely want to change themselves, but I'm definitely not helping the cause by, if I'm trying to, if the end result is I'm making them feel bad, or I'm trying to make them feel bad, or I'm having bad thoughts about them or myself. And it really is a good reminder. And I know I'm much more motivated. I have more energy when I'm feeling good than when I'm feeling bad. I don't want to do much of anything when I'm not feeling good.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And again, that does sort of go against some conventional wisdom we may have been taught. It goes in line with a lot of what we've learned about the, fat shaming and body shaming. And, there's been some pushback, which I know a lot of the comedians that have podcasts that I listen to will push back and say, no, we need to get back to where we shame people for their bad behavior. And no, we really, there's something in between pretending like everything is fine and everything is healthy, and trying to actively shame people for the things that they do that we don't think they should be doing. There is a healthy, evidence-based approach to inspiring and encouraging people to change that doesn't really fit in between either of those things. We're pretending everything is fine or trying to make people feel bad. There's a way in between that can actually accomplish, inspiring people that it seems like people want to lose sight of.
Yeah, and the thing it also comes down to is, maybe the people who are, overweight, they don't have a problem that they don't, maybe they feel okay, Right. I mean, yeah, we can look at them and make these assumptions and everything else like that, but, it has to be something they want to do, so it's not so just because you're shaming me doesn't make me want to, that's the last thing I'm going to want to do. Right. So that's the thing is it's really important to try to remove those shoulds from your world, from friends and family. And it's really difficult. I have a problem with it too, but really kind of listen to yourself and go, hey, what do I want?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next week we're going to cover chapter 1 in all of its detail, and we will look at the B equals map methodology of behavior happens when motivation, ability, and prompt converge at the same moment. And I'm looking forward to that. And there's a lot of diagrams in chapter 1, and also some really good exercises at the end of chapter 1 that we'll cover next week.
Yeah, and like we said, we'll be going. Charles and I'll be working through that with Charles's plan to get a ripped six-pack by age 46, and we'll be doing that in our Patreon and going through these exercises step by step. So I'm excited to do that. And Charles, thanks for volunteering to be vulnerable as we go through this. No,
I'm looking forward to it as well. Hey, any one other segment you and I talked about adding to the show was any products or devices that made your life easier the last week?
Ooh, I'm going to need a second to think about that.
I'll go first.
Go first.
I have made the transition to using the wallet that attaches to the back of my Apple phone case, because I got a 14 Pro now with MagSafe, and the wallet that holds up to 3 cards, attaches to the back of my case, and now I don't carry a wallet anymore. I pay for everything either with Apple Pay or with one of the 2 cards that I keep in here along with my driver's license, and it has been a game changer. I love not having to carry a wallet in my pocket, because I like wearing those super small short shorts, 5-inch inseam for life. And
right.
The fewer things that I have to carry, the better off I am. And now it's funny. A lot of the places I go, and this is good info for car thieves in the Orlando area. I usually don't even carry my keys with me. I just toss my keys in one of the consoles in my car and just leave my car unlocked. And all I have to carry on me is my phone with my attached wallet. And so I'm not carrying a wallet. I'm not carrying keys. All I'm carrying is basically my phone with me wherever I go now. And it has made things so much easier. So I got my Apple Watch around my wrist, my Apple phone in my pocket, and that's it. And I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I guess it was what's made my life easier for sure is a app called Fitbod for working out.
Okay.
And I've been using it for a few years now, and I like it that the developers are very active. They are listening to feedback from their users, and what it does is it recommends different workout programs. You put in, your body weight and your level of training and what you want to focus on. And then you can put in things such as, you want to do, different types of workouts. And so, for lifting, so it's all around weightlifting, right? So you could do a push-pull split where you're using muscles to push on one day, you're using the muscles to pull on another day, and then you use legs on the other day. And it will automatically adjust the different exercises and the weights based on what you've currently done. And what's nice is it's got a great Apple Watch integration. So you can basically keep your phone in your pocket and just log the sets and the reps and everything as you're going along. It also monitors how much time you have. So I love the integration. And it's one of the reasons I ended up buying an Apple Watch was because I don't need to bring my phone in and out to see how much time I've got left. It'll just vibrate when it's time to start the next set again, right? So if you're keeping it at specific times, the idea is it will progress and really customize to your strength over time. So I love that Fitbod app, and it allows you to also create your own workouts. So I've been playing with that as well. And they've made some changes. I gave them some feedback the other day in terms of after my own saved workouts, it was screwing things up. It's supposed to automatically add like weights or change the reps or things like that. It wasn't doing that. And then within a week and a half, the developers made the change to fix the problem.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
So, right. And it was a feature that had only been out for like, I don't know, maybe a month or so. And I got feedback right away from the support, an email saying, hey, our developers are aware of this already. We're working on it. And so I was impressed with how quickly they implemented a change. So, in terms of, I've had a lot of apps that don't really care so much, but for working out, it's a fantastic app that I highly recommend.
All right. I'll have to keep that in mind because right now, I just track my stats, my workouts with a Google Sheet. So basically, a link to an Excel document that I open up on my phone, and you're doing a pretty good job selling that. That's a better way to do it.
What's nice too is when you get a higher weight, or you do more reps, or you do a higher volume, which is the weight times the reps, it will give you a little reward. It'll do a little celebration. Congrats. You just set a new volume record. You just set a new potential 1 rep max record. So you don't have to do these 1 rep maxes. You can just do your normal workout and it will calculate based on what you've done, what your 1 rep max is. And so
I use a separate app just to calculate 1 rep maxes. So that's great.
It's great.
It does all of it in one.
It's not free. It's not free, but it's worth it.
Do you remember is it a monthly subscription or a one-time buy, or how does that work?
I think you can do both. It's cheaper for I think a yearly, or you can do a monthly. I think it's definitely. I really recommend. It's very customizable, and so I like. You could. The other thing is, I hate to keep talking about it, but no, I'm not going to hate it. But you can eliminate certain exercises that you don't want to do, and then it will never recommend those exercises. Or if you don't have those machines in your gym, you can remove them, and it'll never suggest them. And then it's really customizable, and I love it.
All right, cool. I'm gonna check it out. I'm thinking that. On this new journey I'm going to be on, I could use a tool like that. So I'll give it a shot and see how I like it. And then, yeah, I could almost come up with a new app to talk about every week, because I'm constantly downloading them and trying them out. But some I buy, some I don't buy, and yeah, that's I like that. So we'll I'll plan on doing an app next week. I'll talk about an app that I use. All right, cool,
perfect.
All right, thanks, Dan. I will chat with you later.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.